gonna steal all side, ride me, baby. I ain't never gonna stop. Come on now, baby. Ride me straight to the top. Yeah, straight to the top.
Okay, now I think I'm ready.
This is bad ideas, good idea, bad ideas, good ideas. Bad ideas, good stories. Number 26.
Yep.
All right, I'll get
Barely
right back
conscious.
down. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
really good.
Hate.
Okay.
Yep. Got a fresh haircut. My new Coxbar shirt. Liking
Shit.
it. Pretty stoked on that.
You do look fairly fresh.
Yeah, actually, I just came back from Omar. You know, he made me fresh. And then-
Faded you into freshness.
yes.
Nice. That's a sharp look for you.
Yeah, it works for me.
I'm dressed exactly like my father. Blue plaid with gray sweatpants.
Yeah, I did that for a long time. Well, except not the sweatpants.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
Yep.
I used to totally raid his closet on the reg for
really?
work shirts and shit
Ah.
like that. Yeah. It's weird, you know, the punk rock scene that I grew up in, everybody hated their dads, but we all stole their clothes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's fuck you, Dad, give me that shirt.
Weird. There's some porno that starts like that, too. Fuck you,
yeah.
Daddy, give me that shirt.
Yeah, no.
As he lifts the size matters cup up to his face. They're fucking enormous.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. It's a lot of innuendo. Cock.
Yeah.
You got cock right on your shirt. No, it's not cock. You got
No,
it's
it's
a spar.
It's the last part
Well,
of
that's
the
all.
bed.
That's all I seen when I saw it. I was like, I wonder if that's a cock spar shirt.
Yeah.
And
Well, I do have, you know,
should say
a
cock
big
on it,
truck
big letters.
and a loud Harley and, you know, lots of tattoos, so I must have a huge hog. That's just what happens with
Yep.
that. That's how
That's
that
what it
works.
means. It's all the benefits to the huge hog.
So you can
What are we-
advertise
what
it
are we
like
talking
crazy
about?
with all of the large
You didn't
things.
get those things. You
Size
gravitate-
matters.
They gravitate towards your enormous hog.
Yes, they do. When they see this coffee cup, they come running. My huge coffee
Leaps
cup
and
brings
bounds.
the boys to the yard.
Yep. The best part of waking up.
All right. So, yeah, how you been the last week or so? What's been going on?
It's been I-8. It's been okay.
Yeah.
The weather kind of sucked there for a while, and that kind of put me in a fucking shitty mood. But other than that, you know, just life, living, fucking jamming. Been jamming a bit. That's fun. We're going to do a live stream on Thursday for some bar in Alberta, I think. Yeah, so that'll be fun to play the same.
How you do
music we
that?
always
You know,
play.
you just set it up on the internet and they play it?
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
interesting.
Yep. We just shoot it from the jam space, and it's weird and awkward because there's still no feedback from anybody usually. Well, I guess the one we did,
Well, where
there
can
was a guy
people
with
see
the
your
live
music
feedback
online?
on there.
Where can they see you play online?
Yeah, Facebook thing.
I checked your
Yeah.
Facebook page and all I could find was like a couple jam. Like oh, this will be done soon. Here's a new riff or and here's a new song. Like, do you guys have like finished stuff up? Anyway?
There should be links on there for some of the live stream shows we did.
Oh, okay. I'll have to take a look again. So if people at home want to check it out, it's Old Tolerated on Facebook. Yes.
Yeah, that's the easiest way.
All right.
The
Cool.
easiest and only way, I think, right now, because nobody can do shows, so this is one way to sort of play a show, I guess.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anything else is playing
Anything on
with
your
us. I had no idea about it. I just know that we're doing it Thursday.
Just show up and do it.
Yep, barely on time. That'll be me.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But yes, that's kind of what I've been up to. That's the only reason I've left the house that wasn't working the last little while, because I've been trying to fucking hibernate a little bit. Don't really care for this time of year to begin with, and less is more right now. I'm trying to fucking do as little as possible.
My kid got locked down for 10 days. I'm not sure if we talked about that last one. And then I went and got tested, and I had, a 2-day isolation just to be on the safe side until they either call you with a positive or don't, you know? And if
Yeah.
they don't, I think you're safe enough to leave because they haven't told you you have the plague yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm running with that.
You're getting that plague notice out early.
Well, you didn't tell me I didn't have the
Yeah,
plague.
exactly.
So I'm out and about.
I'm not having plague.
Yes, exactly. not having the plague. You have the plague, maybe.
Yeah,
you put down the plague.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Shit. But no, that's been it, man. Fucking, I don't know anything of interest like that. So,
Oh, now we're
the
getting into
thing
it.
that I was interested in talking about is only moderately interesting, but kind of gets into more interesting topics. It would be the weird little monolith that was found in Utah.
Yes, I saw it. It looks like a very cubist chunk of metal sticking out of the desert randomly. Is that on public property or is it on private property?
Yeah, no, it's public land, and it was so it's in southeast Utah, and I guess they found it. Oh, when the fuck they find it? 18th of November, and it was a bunch of like park rangers or some shit in a helicopter flying over the area counting sheep, and they see this weird fucking thing out in this part of the
Shining
desert that's
from-
really hard to get to. It's down in this little canyon. You can't drive down to it. Like,
Oh, really?
yeah, like it's not. It's yeah, it's kind of out in the middle of fucking nowhere. So they stop in and they check it out, and that's when they shot the initial footage of it that was on the news and stuff of them just, you know, hey, we don't know what the fuck this thing is, and so it's 3-sided, not 4-sided, like most
so it wasn't-
obelisks or most obelisks are 4-sided with a point on a taper. This isn't doesn't have that, so it's not technically that, but it was weird just from the what you could see of it. It looked like it was, at least on the sides, it was 3 different pieces of metal that were put together. It appeared to be metal and either riveted or bolted in some way, but it was a very clean construction, and only about 12 feet tall, which I mean is very tall, but I mean it's not like the obelisks in Egypt or fucking Rome or the U.S. Capitol, you know, where they're hundreds of feet tall. So yeah, it was just
But it's
weird.
metal.
It's metal. It's
the middle
it's
of
out
nowhere.
in the middle of nowhere, and it would have seemed it would have been difficult to move. And then a week
Well, how
later,
much would that weigh? Like 12 feet of like solid whatever.
depends on
kind
what
of
it
metal?
is. If,
Yeah,
if
I
it was
guess.
all separate pieces and it was put together, but that would have been interesting to see too, because it is tough to put something triangular together in different pieces without it bending. Anyways, I don't know. It's an odd little fucking structure that popped up in the desert. Well, then November 27th, it's gone.
Oh, it's
And
gone.
It's gone now.
It just disappeared.
Yes, and it wasn't the Park Service that removed it, and they don't have any reports of who removed it, and they don't know when it was initially put there, because it isn't like an area they regularly. Oh, we check over here for weird chunks of shit out in the desert all the
Yeah.
time. The one thing that I'd seen that said that it could have been as far back as like August 2015, like that was the last kind of like updated Google Earth thing or whatever that was on it that would have been actually live.
So it just shows up for a few months and then disappears.
Well, it's tough to say. Or once it's discovered, then it disappears, right? Or maybe it was only there for a short period of time. There just wasn't any more recent footage.
Oh,
than that.
August is when they found it.
No, that was the last time that they'd had footage of that for like Google Maps or whatever, and there was nothing there.
Okay.
So they said, well, there was nothing there that day, and then we know it was here then. So between then and now, sometime is when it was put in. They didn't have anything else other than that to even gauge how long it had been there. But yeah, so it's all very odd, and then and it disappears, and then supposedly one shows up in Romania. This one disappeared on the 27th. One shows up in Romania on the 26th of November, but it looks of different construction to me. Like it looks as though it was welded along the seams, and it looks like there's grinder marks all over it, and it's
okay.
it's like, and I'm not saying the other one didn't look like it was made by people. It definitely looked like it was made by fucking people. It was something we could definitely do. It was just a much cleaner, more
Job.
modern type of construction, whereas this was definitely looked like something somebody I could have done. You know what I
Okay,
mean? With all
yeah,
the
yeah.
grinder marks on it and shit like that. It was like it wasn't any feet, you know. And so whatever, that might just be weird, some weird copycat fucking thing. I don't know, but it's just interesting that these kind of like these monoliths, these obelisks, they keep popping up throughout history, and there's a bunch of different reasonings behind them. And like I have one theory that I think is kind of interesting that we might talk about, but yeah, so that's kind of what's going on with this one right now.
But
is-
the metal ones are contemporary. Like I
Yes.
don't know if the other ones that they've found have been metal as opposed to like concrete or carved stone or
Exactly, almost all of them, and usually they're one piece of stone.
Okay,
and a
yeah.
lot of times it's like granite or something like that that has like a high frequency, like vibrational frequency.
okay.
Well, okay, so then that kind of ties into like the Georgia Guidestone. So like some people think sometimes these are put up as a way to draw attention to something or pay an homage to something, and that the modern, like the ancient ones were that for gods, but the modern ones are maybe to try and, I don't know, point us in directions of fucking things so you see stuff so you understand like what the global cabal is doing. You know what
Okay.
I mean? Like maybe there's some esoteric meaning behind these and the way they're situated and how this one's got 3 sides and it points to this crevice in the canyon sort of on the point, and you know they got all these different meanings try to attach to it, right? And but the Georgia Guidestones is one that like they wrote the meanings on it. And this is something that's relatively modern too. It was 1980 when it was erected, and like there's no real mystery about how it was built because it was like a local quarry quarried the rock and set it up and did all the work.
Somebody
and put
paid
all the,
to
put all
make
the
it, have it
somebody
made.
somebody paid to make it, have it made. But there's controversy behind who did it, because it was this person, this R.C. Christensen, that supposedly had signed the check or commissioned the work, but that's not a real person. And they thought that might have been like a code for like the Rosicrucians.
Oh yeah. I could
So
see
that
yeah.
so that maybe this esoteric group had commissioned this work to have it built, but they used this intermediary to get it through, so it wasn't tied back to them or whatever. So anyways, they built these, and I mean, and not like to fanfare, like they didn't like put it up and have a ceremony. They just put this stuff up, and then it was there, and then people kind of just kept discovering it. Wait, there's these big weird rocks out in the middle of Georgia that are like sort of built like a fucking Stonehenge, and they have all these weird different meanings to it, plus obvious on the nose meanings with the Ten Commandment type inscriptions that are
What are the
scrawled on
stuff
it.
that are inscribed on it?
Okay, so yeah, so there's 10 sets of guidelines or principles on these guidestones, and they're in 8 different currently existing languages. And then there's 4 more phrases on the top of the upright stones that are in ancient languages. And the ones on the face of it, so the 10 of them are, so like number 1, maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature, guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity, unite humanity with a living new language, rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. Number 5, protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. Number 6, let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. Number 7, avoid petty laws and useless officials. Number 8, balance personal rights with social duties. Number 9, price truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. Number 10, be not a cancer on this earth. Leave room for nature, leave room for nurture. Or sorry, leave room for nature, leave room for nature. Nature twice. So they really made a point of that. So,
And does it say what the ancient language ones on the top said it on?
let's see here. Well, the interpretations, these are just interpretations of, I'm looking through the Wikipedia fucking thing right now because I didn't finish getting on my
Well, otherwise you're just going to rewrite Wikipedia.
And again, all this information's out there. I didn't do any research on Georgia Guidestones. No one else has. This is all stuff that's easily accessible, and it's literally written in stone. You know what I mean? Yeah. So just because I hadn't seen the fucking
Translations of the ancient.
yes for the ancient ones in the 4. I know it's in here somewhere, but anyways, so it's these supposed like 10 Commandment like guidestones that are set up, and then there's
Or
also
guidelines
with
for
the way
the-
that they're positioned, it also like aligns with equinoxes, it aligns with the fucking
solstice, the
with
equinox, the
the
four
true
cardinal
north, all
directions.
that kind of shit. Yes, exactly. And so to me, it feels like something that you would build if you were like, okay, there might be some sort of huge cataclysm that like wipes shit out for generations, and we lose our history, we lose our written word, we lose whatever.
They're gonna
we
find
lose
that.
governance. Maybe we have to revert to basically being almost at a caveman like fucking level. You get tribal, you know, and then maybe in this place where it is relatively fertile, near more towards the middle of the country, in a place that if there was even floods and stuff, probably be okay. If there was a new ice age, even Georgia's far enough south that it might be a spot that like people are still inhabiting. So it's just kind of interesting that like in modern times we're seeing something like that built, that it's like, well, no, this could have been kind of prepared for that. Whereas a lot of these ancient stone structures, that's the same kind of idea. They're like, no, we need this information here for everyone to remember forever. But it was like to praise and honor a god, or
that's what they say.
Exactly.
right?
Yes,
You know,
exactly.
it could be
That's-
for anything, really.
Yeah. Well, and that's okay. So that's where a lot of these different meanings for these fucking weird obelisks and monoliths. One of the theories I've heard that I think is kind of interesting, especially
Back to the Georgia Guidestones.
Oh, sure.
though.
Sorry, I'm getting a little ahead.
Yeah. Like I think in a lot of ways, what is it? Novo Ordem Seclorum, which is New Order of the World on the United States dollar bill. That was supposedly put there by the Masons, right? Which the debate is, what is the New Order of the World? And the commandments that would put, or whatever, I don't want to call the guides that they put on the guide stones seem like a very well thought out order of the world in a way that would be progressive in some ways, but it's going. What was the numbers? The maximum human population.
500 million.
500 million, and then what are we at? How many billion?
Just over 8 billion, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. So
right
that would
around
be
8 billion,
that would involve a great culling, wouldn't it?
Well, okay. So that's what most people do say when they first hear that. And that's the first one. The first one is maintain humanity under 500 million. So it's a culling, right? And I mean,
Or sterilization.
or something. There's a great reduction in the population.
Yeah, there
right?
has to be.
And I think that a lot of people right off the bat, that's their first thing is they think that, and they think negative, and they think that it's engineered. You know, like that there has to be an engineered culling or there has to be an engineered sterilization to get us down to that level. Whereas it's like, I think this shit is like, no, like you got wiped out. Like maybe there is only 50,000 people left in the fucking world at the point where something like this would be of a necessity, where you need to have something written in stone to tell you how to rebuild society.
If that's what it is.
That's what I'm saying, though, right? If that's what this is, then it doesn't make sense to apply it to, well, no, we still have several million people, are still several, there's 4 billion people still on the planet and functioning. You know what I mean? No, that's still more than we've had other points in history where we still had civilization. You know what I mean? We can regress way further than that. We can go down to probably 1 billion people on the planet and still be like, nah, we still got technology. We didn't lose. I mean, we have less people, you know, but we could still understand, and as long as there's no cataclysm wiping us out, maintain the knowledge of those ones that are gone, right? But as soon as there's a global ice age or an asteroid hits or some shit like that, where it's like, no, it's extinction level event, something like this would still be there. And then for the 50 or 100,000 of you that are left.
If that's the goal, like if that's like, it's a manual for the future as opposed to a manual for the present, which is the goal of what some people would want to instill on the planet right now to reestablish an ecological harmony, like ecosystem, natural balance towards things, which is necessary. We cannot maintain the numbers we have. It's like simple math. Like,
well, okay, so the interesting thing about that is we can just do that. Like, we don't need to have a global agenda to depopulate if everyone just agrees, like, oh, no, these all make sense. We should all try to do that.
But they won't.
Well,
everyone won't agree.
Of course
India,
not.
Russia, fucking, you know, they're not.
Well, then it gets to be, then that's why this isn't built for that. This isn't built for that existence or that society where even that shit would make sense. It's built for a time, like I said, where we're basically like fucking cavemen. Like everything's gone. We got to start over. We've lost language. You know what I mean? Like we've lost social structure.
Or it's built for people that have that as an agenda to say this is what we need to establish in order for a future, for a capacity for humanity to survive.
Okay, so there's that also. But I was thinking about this too. With that, I feel like with those level of agendas, like you want to really run shit. You want to take stuff over behind the scenes and have.
I wouldn't even say it's behind the scenes, but like maybe this organization says this is what needs to happen.
Here's what I'm saying though. Is I feel like with that kind of stuff, you end up on two ends of the spectrum. Either it's very, very secretive and only a handful of fucking people know they need to know, or it's so blatant and obvious that it's a societal wide thing and they're like, no, you don't understand how the strings are being pulled, but this is the thing that we've been manipulating the whole time. To have it be some weird little esoteric chunk of stone out in the Georgia thing to be like, this is what we're doing.
Who owns the land that it's on?
Was that on private land?
Yeah, it would kind of have to be, wouldn't it? Like,
I think it was put up on private land, if I remember.
Yeah,
correctly. But it might be parkland now because there is like a park attached to it or whatever.
Yeah, find out where that
well,
that
was it. It was all dead ends, though. Right? You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Like those,
so they did do the
these
research.
RC Christian or whatever. Like there was no really getting back to ultimately who was the source of this.
Like realistically, for maintenance of this planet, like a radical change has to happen. One of the bands I listen to a lot, Integrity, has a shirt that says, in order to save humanity requires the greatest fear it's ever known. And pandemics are one possible thing. You know, we can't maintain our trajectory as a species doing the damage to the ecosystem that we do. We need to vastly reduce numbers. We need my one buddy, he's a very staunch, you know, believer in mandatory sterilization. You know, you don't need to kill anybody, but you don't get to have kids. You know, for X amount of time, like we're not allowed to have kids. Yeah. Call it oppressive if you want, but we need radical changes to happen.
That's a pretty extreme version. You know,
well,
that's part of the reason why I'm not having kids is I'm like, there's lots already.
Yeah, there's volunteer.
There doesn't need to be a bunch more other kids out there, you know. Like,
yeah, well, the people that should have kids aren't, and those that shouldn't are. It's idiocracy, you know. Basically, it's like,
well, okay. So
all the wrong kids,
in my head,
people
though,
don't
again,
give a shit.
I'm picturing most of this in a relatively positive spin, right? Like it's like, no, this is worst case scenario. We have to start over. These are positive ways you could do this. It may seem oppressive now in the world we live in, right? But like, if again you're starting over fresh, that's a different thing. And oh shit. I hate when I fucking do that.
Well, you say it's a positive angle. I don't know. Like you break some eggs to make an omelet kind of angle?
No. Okay, so even to do it now, like, so even to institute all of this right now, like you said, it would it's unlikely that everybody would ever get on board, right? Even though if it's all like,
Well-
this is all stuff that we can all agree is for our best interest, and all we have to do is basically be pandas and just never fuck to fucking procreate. You know what I mean? We have one generation of nobody having kids. You know what I mean? That's a huge depopulation that just happens naturally from people dying of old age and how
Or in
people
one
normally die.
generation, everybody's only allowed to have half a kid. You can have one
Yeah.
kid with one person.
Yeah, right?
That's
Yeah.
what you're allowed, and then you get your little.
Well,
snip.
and I think a lot of people are choosing that. There's a lot of people deciding they're not going to have kids or they're only going to have the one, and I think that's part of the logic for that, right? And again, it's not enough people now to like drastically turn the course of the planet, so all of a sudden it's not 8 billion people.
Well, and you have to consider those places in the planet that they don't give a shit about this.
Yes,
well,
of
I'm
course,
gonna
of
have 8
course.
kids.
That's-
I'm, like,
of course, and those are also the places that do continue to suffer through this, because a lot of the places where you're seeing all the drastic drops,
voluntary.
yes, like Japan and like a lot of Northern European countries and shit like that. Much better financially, much more stable societally. You know what I mean? Like it's all
There's
steps.
problems like
Well,
maintaining a workforce in an industrialized country.
Sure,
that kind of
but,
stuff.
but those ones too, a lot of those are going to go robotic. Then they're going to find
That's a good point.
technological
Yeah,
ways
yeah.
to fill that gap
That's a very good
without
point.
having to do that.
Stuff gets automated and people
Yes.
voluntarily start to not extinction, but like a reduction of numbers. I think
Mm-hmm.
is mandatory. It has to happen in one way or the other, and short of pandemics doing it,
Well, it sucks because it's like everything else in human nature. It's like we have to have it forced upon us, right? Instead of just living right and doing the right thing, or the sort of difficult thing at the time because it would be the right thing for the group. It's like, well, no, I'm uncomfortable with that and I don't want to do it, or I'm less comfortable than I would be, so I'm not going to do it.
Well, Gandhi said, "Live simply, so others may simply live." Right, and that's a fucking really wise. You don't need these extravagant lifestyles. You know, fuck. I saw this thing on Instagram, and it's like Ibiza on my yacht, and like, holy shit, this guy's just cruising with like this mirrored yacht. I'm like, do you need that though? Do you need that? Don't get me wrong. I would love to. I don't know if I need to own that, but I'd like to be there.
Be a fun afternoon.
Yeah,
Spend a weekend on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
No, well, yeah, and it's just, it is kind of gross because like you said, our existence in a lot of ways fuels this much grosser existence for other people and other, like every sweatshop making probably most of the shit I'm wearing right now.
Yep.
Well,
fuck yeah.
that's-
Punk bands with all the ethics in the world are still getting or their ethical logos in the Western culture printed on these sweatshop shirts.
Yeah.
There's a movement, Propaganda, Jello Biafra. I forget what they're called. It's I think it might be punkshirts.org, and they go to their way to find like sustainable, ethically sourced, like non-sweatshop shirts companies. But like that's a perfect example. Everything we do in this culture, these microphones probably exploited somebody. The lithium operating the iPad, exploitive. Like the coffee beans that I'm putting in here.
Hey,
fuck,
there's 4 deaths attached to that one, 3 rapes attached to this
Yeah,
one.
100%.
It's just a fucking
and the ecological
CSI
aspect
level.
of the coffee fields, the coffee beans. What do they do to the natural jungle in order to grow their coffee? So our existence is based on exploitation. There's the I guess old school like esoteric principle of the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail, right? Which represents life feeding off of life, that the universe is in a constant state of sacrificing itself for its own growth, right? And I really think that's valid. And that's the only way we can really survive if you're trying to be as ethical as possible, is remembering that exploitation is the consequence of existence. Even if we try to live as vegan as possible and as high and moral as possible, that animal or that plant still doesn't want to die. You're still like killing something, right? And life feeds off life. So I guess it is what it is. Okay, so off the journey.
That's awesome, actually, because I mean, a lot of people I think feel guilty throughout their regular life, and it gets to a point where you're like, well, look, I just got to be fucking guilty about everything. Everything I
A
do,
good
I have
Catholic.
to feel guilty about. You know what I mean? I don't want to feel guilty about any of it, then, right? And then some people just turn the switch off.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I picture even like a monk, still acknowledging that, like, well, like I'm still stepping on ants when I'm walking throughout this world, and I'm trying not to, but here, fuck, I stepped on a bunch of them. Maybe if you're a monk, I guess you're not saying, oh, fuck, I stepped on a bunch of them, but
No,
what
no,
I
I
mean.
think if you're an honest monk.
Yeah, you go, cocksucker. He's
like,
cocksucking ants again.
words are just words.
I'm trying to get out of this fucking shitty plane, and I keep squishing ants.
damn it.
That's one of the rules. Don't squish ants.
Yeah. The Jains, they're kind of like an offshoot of the Buddhists. They sift their flour. They walk with brooms in front of them so they don't eat bugs, so they don't step on bugs. And
That's
it's
a whole
weird
other level, yeah.
because to them they believe that the karma is there. They don't want to participate in unnecessary, incurring unnecessary suffering.
Yeah, man.
But like, you also have to live in the culture you live in. Are you going to be that morally perfect? Can we be morally perfect living in Western culture,
Yeah.
short of moving out to some ashram or monastery
Yeah.
and relying on the violence of others to maintain us? Because somebody's going to have to pick food for you. Somebody's still going to have to drive a car to take you to wherever you need to go. Like your medicine, if you get
Yeah.
sick, is coming from some exploitive source.
Yeah.
Short of living,
Yeah,
going.
it's almost like you have. Yeah, it's almost like you have to just give up every single aspect of the modern world, every technological advance, even clothing, shit like that, any technological advancement you could have, and just start right from scratch, caveman style.
And then
and then what you can do ethically on your own from there, that's your existence. But I mean, it's pretty tough if you're just waiting for trees to fall down in the forest
Yeah,
so that you can harvest
fruitarian,
them, so that
yeah.
you can build a structure, and
Yeah, you're going to live
Yeah.
like a beaver, but
Makes
you have
it-
to ask the trees first in order
man.
to pull them away. Like
It's interesting though, but I guess, hey, if there's no specific time frame for it, and you can do the first part of it without dying, wouldn't that would be a pretty great existence,
But eventually, you just end up going back to that whole might makes right angle. I'm strong enough to get away with this, so I'm going to get away with this. How much can you live like? Even rabbits will eat insects. Even rabbits will they're still eating something that's growing, that it has a sentient existence to itself, right? So and of course the rabbit's going to be prey to the coyote, and the coyote might be prey to something bigger like a cougar or something. Who knows, right? That's just, I guess, the way things work. Now we're in a weird situation where we bathe in the exploitation of each other and of the world, and I think
well, and we have a conscience. All those things don't have a conscience. It's how they function. That's what
It's
they
a
do.
necessity.
The bigger thing eats the smaller thing, right? And but we know through existence that as you have experience, you learn that that's not actually how it has to be, and it's not how
Well,
it
okay.
is unless you make it like that.
So it makes me wonder then, if we want to talk about conscience, well, when I give my dog hell for doing something wrong and he puts his tail between his legs and he acts like he's in trouble for the best of my interpretation, he knows he did something wrong.
Yep.
And we're communicating. He knows he needs to be in his kennel or in the other room until he's forgiven to come in. He understands what's going on, I think, a lot more than we give them credit for. And there's the new research is that dolphins' brains are much larger and much more complex than the human brains. So these other animals, or even octopus, right? Like, we can't even say if they don't have a conscience or if they're just operating. Maybe we're the handicapped ones because we're like, oh, all right and
Right.
wrong, it's not the good thing to do, and they're just living in harmony, right, with the natural order of things, and we're the ones that for some reason have been removed from the natural order of things, but we think we're superior.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, who knows. And Georgia Guidestones, well, if we get back to 500 million, we might be a little more ecologically sustainable.
Yep.
Yeah. And I tend to side with it's coming from a group of people with an idea on how things should operate. I don't know if it's like, when you guys rebuild, this is the best way to do it, because it's in Georgia. It's not like a global thing, right? If they were in every country around the world, the same Guidestones in different languages, that would make sense. But for some reason, it's got a very Masonic vibe to me.
Yeah, well, that's okay. So that's another interesting thing about it is that it's like it will be one day, unless somebody knocks it over with something, an ancient structure here in the Americas.
Yeah.
Where all the other ancient structures are in Europe, in Africa, in Russia, in that part. We don't have as many of them until you start getting into South America, and at least for the ones above ground, I guess.
Well,
do
they
have
found a
burial
huge-
mounds. We do have lots of shit like that that's still like
They found a huge
ground
art
level and
gallery.
under.
It's like a cliffside art gallery in Utah, which they say is something like 15, 20, 30,000 years old. It's
Oh,
like,
shit.
yeah, they say it's one of the oldest preserved tribal art in the world. And it's
Sure.
this like huge cliffside that the whole thing is like a
Yes.
graffiti wall,
Yeah.
right? But it's just them doing like different murals.
Well, actually,
So-
when I was in Arizona the one time, I did go and see like where they have the living quarters cut out into the side of the
Oh,
rock,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
they're in the canyon, and everybody would climb up there and live in that. But okay, so even that, like even as old as that is, that's still not above ground.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? It's like a standing structure. And so we don't have a pile of those in North America
Oh,
that
yeah,
are
oh,
old
yeah,
and
yeah.
built out of stone, right? We do have some stuff that's underground or kind of excavate or whatever. But so that's interesting because maybe there is some continuity to it throughout all of those. Like maybe there's similar messages in the fucking, what am I talking about? The ones in Scotland, the ones everybody knows about.
Oh, you're talking about Stonehenge?
Stonehenge,
England.
Stonehenge, or the Coronach stones I was thinking of also in France. You know, these huge monolithic fucking stone structures that, you know, seem to be situated in certain ways so that things align at certain times and can tell you different things. It's like, you know, maybe that's kind of what they all were, is like some sort of, look, if we ever reset again, if you get back here, sit here at this time of year, you look that way, you're going to know what time of fucking year it is, you're going to know what time of day it is, you're going to be able to figure out from that when you should start doing your growing and all those core things that like, look, we're going to skip you ahead several generations or even hundreds of years in human evolution, because if you started over, because like say the average Joe had to start over fucking next week and didn't really understand celestial alignment and how when the seasons actually did start and stop.
Solstice and equinox.
Exactly, right? If you had something that bumped you ahead a bunch instead of sitting there for generations passing down stories about how, well, the grains came in really good those 3 years where the stars were lined up like this when we put it in, and then when the ones where they were lined up like this when we put it in, it didn't work out, so maybe we start that, you know, you can skip all that.
Well, I think a lot of times these were a lot of these cultures didn't have written tradition, so they had oral tradition, and other than that, they had these monoliths that were built in order for them to pass it down.
Yep.
You know, and it could just be we use these monoliths to explain to our kids and our grandkids, and you know, and they hope that they someday culture would be able to sustain. Mm-hmm. But our modern culture and the development of science, you think that they definitely think that they've taken that over. You know what I mean? Like, we have a calendar now. We have a modern calendar. We have astronomy. We don't need to have these pre-industrial technology, right?
Well, because I think that they never thought that they were intended for future use. It was to pay homage to an ancient god or to the sun or to something else, to something that was happening currently or already happened. Because I don't think they give them credit to be like, no, we're building these stone structures in this way, so 5,000 years from now, when you guys see this shit, you're going to know how this stuff works if you ever have to start over again like we did. You know, I don't think that they ever thought that was the intention built into these things, right? Because in ancient times, you don't picture them doing that. Like, I'm building this for the future generations. That they didn't have concepts of time like that even at some points when these shit was being built.
Well, like,
you know?
Generations, grandchildren, and stuff like that.
Like the idea of like they fucking, some people depending, like if you look at the Aztecs and the Mayans and that kind of shit, you know, they're building these calendars that supposedly can run on thousands of year cycles, and they're building that for the future. But there were people that like thought they were the only existence and that they had to give blood to the fucking gods, and like, so the people that have to give blood to the gods in this time through human sacrifice can also picture a time thousands of years from now when we'd need this information built into the stone to navigate our new world. You know, like, I'm like, that's a lot. Like, that's it's possible, but that's a lot for a civilization that seems so very primitive in that way.
The Aztecs technically believed that the earth took the blood, and that gave them the corn and the beans, and that was what fertilized the earth.
So then that's the kind of society that's also building into it, you know, geometric shapes that make sense and move with the fucking.
Well, they did understand.
You know what I
that
mean?
stuff.
Like,
yeah, like, well, to them, the stars. Well, think about it, right? We're inundated with our technology, with our magazines and our TV and our cell phones and our videos and stuff. What did they have? They had fire. They had dogs, you know, that we can watch the dogs fight, you know, watch the fire, or they had the stars. And after a while, they're staring at the sky from the time the sun goes down to the time the sun comes up, right? So they're going to analyze that after the generations and recognize, oh, this time of year they're here, this time of year they're here, and recognizing. Well, the Aztecs kind of blow me away. They had like the 45,000 year calendar, like the great, I think they called it the solar year as opposed to the lunar year. I forget which is which, or the lunar year, either way. But that's the long cycle.
our trip around the instead of
Anyways. Well, think about it. You know, if our sun, everything orbits around the sun, it does not make sense that the sun is orbiting around something larger. Which is orbiting around something larger. So if they can pay attention to those different orbits, what one theory I heard, which was pretty valid, was if the order, like, imagine if after a while we just kind of go into something else's orbit.
Yep.
And all of a sudden we're kind of coming to a crossroads where orbits kind of crash and asteroids start flying our way and like other planets start smashing our way. That might be a cataclysmic thing. And if somebody could recognize the cycle, how often every 45,000 years
Yep.
we come into this time, which is a very quote unquote end times,
Yep.
because huge asteroids have tended to hit the Earth. And I think, I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure science has found that like the cataclysms that have like eradicated life on Earth have happened in a very close proximity to that time frame, right?
Yep.
Where
It's all cyclical.
and it makes sense, right? Like, because if there's an orbit and all of a sudden you kind of come into the orbit every 45,000 years of something else, boom, you know? But
Yeah.
how does that get passed on to early man? How does that information
Well,
get
that's it.
passed on
Through
to early
stone.
man?
Through
Yeah,
things that
possibly.
would still stick around through that, and hopefully the next civilization can interpret it
Can
properly
understand the
to
language.
skip those early steps that you made, and then jump ahead a few 100 or 1,000 years or 100,000 years or however many.
Yeah,
You know what I
right.
mean? How whatever the difference is in that, if you can somehow pass that on. Yeah, no, I think it's interesting because it's also. I feel like there's some sort of tie into that it's that human existence also feels that when that time is coming, that's when dark times happen. That's when things get violent and tumultuous and shit at a
Kali
societal
Yuga.
level, right? You start to feel that, and maybe that's something that is ingrained in us genetically, that like we as a fucking global community know that every, like you say, 45,000 years or whatever it is, there's this other time that it's going to come around and we're going to be like, oh fuck, is this like the time that it was that, you know? Like we all kind of start to feel it, and then it starts to, you see more craziness with the weather, more craziness with the people.
Well, it's a possibility. It's a possibility. Either that, or we've just got existential malaise. You know,
Well.
we've got so much physical entertainment that we've lost connection with any of the internal, like you know, all of the toys to entertain the body, but nothing to satisfy the soul.
Well, okay, so that kind of does tie in with my theory on what obelisks were, at least in some circumstances, like the ones near the Great Pyramids of Egypt and shit like that. Mm-hmm. I think that they honestly did work like big tuning forks or receivers.
Okay.
And that if there was vibrational frequencies that would then resonate from one to the other and would pass throughout areas. So in my mind, it would almost be like playing a very soothing music throughout a mall. You know what I mean? How it just kind of calms everybody and it puts you into that mood. Having a very calming tone that vibrated from one huge receiver to another throughout communities would do something
Like
similar.
psychically or
No, like
or-
physically. Like it would be a physical vibration, because like, you know, through breathing and through yoga and shit, like doing the ong noise creates a different vibrational frequency than doing one at a higher pitch or a lower pitch, and then that shit can unlock like your pineal gland and stuff like that. Like that's, you know, you vibrate that at the right
Well, that's what
frequency, it's
some
supposed to
people
start
say,
to,
yeah.
to make it activate, right? So then the theory with that is that like say that the Great Pyramids were never a tomb, that they were a power generation station, which, I mean, does kind of make sense, because most everything else we've ever built throughout human history that was on a similar scale was something that would give us back power in some way. Like dams are a great example of that. You don't generally do a
Well, it's
huge,
contemporary, right?
massive, well, but
But
anything.
historically, these were monoliths for the gods, like the Egyptian, like Chichen Itza and stuff like that.
Yeah, but those, okay, so like
That was
I
a
believe
sacrifice
for
temple, I think,
for
the large one in Chichen Itza.
Yes, but I believe those are all younger than the Great Pyramids, which I think generally most people feel like that those were kind of the main pyramids that everything else is kind of built from, because they're the biggest. They had the biggest stone moved. Everything else is kind of a mirror image of that.
Okay.
But nobody's ever been buried in those ones. There's never been bodies found in them. There's never been carvings inside of them saying who was there and who was supposedly buried there or whatever. And the way they're designed is in a very weird way that if anybody looks into like the Great Pyramid design, like all the different chambers and the different types of stone that are used and the way they're angled, a lot of it is set up for something that seems as though it would be energy generation of some sort. You're having a reaction of some sort within these things, chemically, or it's vibrational, because a lot of times a lot of these are on ley lines, or they're also on fault lines, or places that are hot, that have a lot of energy. You know what I mean? So let's just say that the Great Pyramid was an energy generation station of some sort, but it created a vibrational energy. And it was strong enough, and it worked in alignment that helped balance, because they say, okay, so this was a theory that they wanted to use in California currently to stop earthquakes from happening, and that was controlled explosions in along fault lines so you could release pressure gradually instead of having a great big release that would cause an earthquake. And that's the idea of building like a vibrational structure on a where plates meet, is that they can always kind of vibrate, and then they never build energy that's ever going to build up to become that cataclysmic event. And then that's one way to calm that. Plus, if it was, let's say it's a tonal frequency that did provide a calming tone to the actual people, that's a vibration that calms the earth and does calm the people in the same area, and would be passed through stone most easily, because that's one of the things that passes vibration most easily, right?
Well,
And that's, again, it's a wild ass
it's a
fucking theory.
hypothesis,
That's a
yeah.
wild ass theory. But I mean, it's something that after, seeing a bunch of these little bits and pieces and stuff, I'm kind of like, well, that could make sense. Like if that was what that was built for, throw everything else and just say, okay, if that's what it was for, why wouldn't there be a way to send that around? Get that energy around there. And if these things were receivers for it, and again, a lot of times in these same areas, like northern Egypt, how it is now, like it used to be a paradise, and you can argue that it was just the what do you call it? Like geographic changes and environmental changes that turned it into more of a desert, and then it wasn't as hospitable and all that kind of shit. But it also seemed like it became a much more violent, like it's an area of violence all the time now. That cradle of civilization, like where we supposedly first started out. Now it's one of the most violent places in the world. There's always contention there. And it's just interesting because maybe if there was something that was keeping that area vibrating at a frequency that it kept everybody pleasant, that's why it was so luscious and great. And then as those things fell apart, were left behind, forgotten how they worked, were dismantled or knocked over, then you lose the benefit to that.
So I it's a hypothesis. I don't necessarily know enough to really say it's a valid or to disagree with. I tend to think that the ancient civilizations utilize more psychological psychological technology as opposed to physical technology. I don't know. So basically the theory would be like, if you could resonate through the air, everybody would be chill and the earth would be healthy.
Yep. It'd be like when you're in that flow state of meditation, where when you hit that yourself, that perfect, beautiful moment you can feel in yourself, if that was able to be maintained with a frequency
But
that
that's
you
a lot of
transmit to
ifs.
everybody.
That's still a lot of ifs.
You felt it though. You felt it. You've done, I'm sure, group things where you guys.
But
have been
that's a
at frequency.
psychological state. That's not just a frequency. I
Is it
just
though?
don't walk into a room where there's like a vibration going and all of a sudden everything's groovy.
You don't think so?
No.
Dude, you felt vibes your entire life walking into rooms. You've walked into a room and just felt a vibe and been like, I don't like this vibe. I don't like this dude.
Yeah, but that's not
Nobody said anything.
an oral like physical thing. That's a psychological thing.
It could be, or you could be picking up on a vibration of some sort that
Could
maybe
be.
we're not aware of, right? That's the same thing that makes the hair stand up on your neck. That's a physical response.
Well, I'm not
to
pretending
something,
that
right?
I've got a case and I know exactly where
Yeah.
intuition is derived from or what intuition even is.
Mm.
But the idea that if I just put a speaker on with like a certain decibel playing, it is just I don't think that's going to change the mood of a room.
Yep,
Except
that's how
maybe
they
annoying.
hypnotize people.
No, it's not.
Yeah, 1,000 cycle tone? Absolutely.
I haven't even heard of that. Hypnosis is achieving theta brainwave state and concentration. It's a state between waking and sleeping. It's the electromagnetic state of how your brain operates drops down. But I haven't heard about the oral hypnosis or I guess oral, not mouth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that's why they would do the listen to the sound of my voice. That's all part of it. That
Yeah.
soothing tone.
Well,
Getting you to that frequency. Tone's frequency.
It's not the tone. It's the drawing out of the vowels in order to allow you to extend your consciousness and allow your consciousness to follow that language into your subconscious. That's with hypnosis. That's where that comes from. Is to you elongate your vowels. You talk like this. It's not the tone, because a girl with a very high voice can do the same thing if she's doing a sing-songy voice, right? I've got my one hypnotherapist coach. She's got a very, very high voice. I can't even pretend to do it without my voice cracking. But yeah, it's not a tone thing. It's a convincing somebody to relax. It's a psychological thing, and I don't believe it's necessarily a physical vibration thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. That's just
I believe that there are soothing tones and not soothing tones.
Okay, yeah,
I
yeah,
believe
I-
a harsh tone would definitely not mellow the vibe in here, whereas a soothing tone would.
well, yeah, that
That's
makes
all
sense.
I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
And that's vibration. So maybe it could be something audible, or it could be something that actually vibrates you physically in a way that just feels pleasant.
Possibly, yeah.
The reason why I like live music more than I like canned music. You can feel the bass, you can feel guitars, you feel the vibration, you vibrate at the frequency of what they're creating. That's a different experience.
But yeah, okay, and that is a possibility. But I haven't experienced that as being a mood changing thing. And the idea that like the pyramids would just be running a speaker system through Egypt or around the world, is that what you're saying then?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, possibly. Oh, not sure. Yeah. It's just a big Wi-Fi system, or not Wi-Fi, hi-fi, high fidelity.
No, I said it's like liking it to tuning forks. You know,
Okay.
you're picking up on a frequency that's been sent out and received. That's why many of them are made of things that you can hit the granite ones and they ring.
Well,
Ting,
yeah.
ting.
Yeah, I've seen the science tables where they can do the tones and it shifts the sands and stuff. But how that carries over to changing the planet or changing the ecology or the from a tropical climate to being a sand climate. It's just above my pay grade, I guess.
Well, like I was saying though, it's if the vibration again is along a place that's of contention, like a plate that's meeting. Like science now wanted to do that in California to dissipate earthquakes, controlled explosions. It'd be the same idea, controlled vibration to control the earthquakes. So that would quieten the land in the area.
Controlled explosions being vibrations.
Yes, in that circumstance in California, the controlled explosions would be the vibrations that are releasing the pressure. But if you had it constantly vibrating, it can't build pressure. Just like anything. It only builds pressure when it pushes and it's stagnant, right? If
On
everything's
the tectonic plates.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, or anything.
Yeah.
So if you're constantly moving, you can't build pressure on one spot,
Yeah.
right? That's the idea, is to vibrate it at a frequency.
It's an interesting
doesn't build pressure.
hypothesis. Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. So Georgia Guidestones, the pyramids. Where does this go to from here?
Well, this is what I'm saying, right? These are just weird instances of different structures, monoliths, obelisks, that they pop up all over the place, and sometimes they have an obvious meaning that's on them where it's written on it, like the guide stones. Maybe that's just there to exist. Or some of them where, especially with just the obelisk itself, where a lot of times, like there would be stuff on obelisks, but a lot of times it was just the shape that was important and what they were made out of that was important.
Yeah.
So then that gets to be, well, are we just trying to always capture something? Like the one was that it was a ray of sunlight that had been petrified, and that's what they were always trying to recreate. Or does it get to be that at some point that's the mythology attached to it, but there was actually a physical benefit to having these big, tall, stone resonating, ringing structures in all of these advanced communities and outside of all their temples, like outside of churches, stuff like that, they'd build these obelisks.
Okay. Are we talking about the ones with the pyramidion on the
Yep.
top and
four
just along
sides, tall.
four
yeah.
songs? And
Yeah.
okay, and they I don't know if they
Washington
all
Monument.
resonate. Do they all resonate?
Well, of videos I've seen of ones that were carved out of granite specifically.
Okay.
They would resonate, and I mean all stone does to some degree, right? You just get different noises and shit. Sometimes it's dead sounding if it's something porous, but anything hard, and all of them I believe were meant to be made out of one piece of stone as well. So to have anything that tall and skinny, it would have to be a really hard piece of stone. Something, yeah.
Well, yeah, for sure. I know I've read in different books and stuff that the obelisk represents the pyramidion of the human achievement and refinement at the very top. And I'm not sure what the stand part of the obelisk represents. I forget about that. But that's where like the pyramidion being the top capstone of a pyramid, right? And they were all pretty consistent with that. But yeah, who knows?
Well, it's just interesting to me because I feel like a lot of times that stuff, like there are the esoteric meanings to it, there are the spiritual meanings to it, but then it's still this thing that you physically recreate over and over and over again throughout centuries. And you're just like, yeah, okay, I get that there's a story behind it, or there's like, yeah, it's pointing us up towards where we want to be, but it's a lot of work to do just that, and out of these same materials over and over again, right? Like that's weird to me. And that the Washington Monument is one also is just odd, like.
Well, Masons.
It's right, and
It's
again,
all Masons. It's the mystery schools that pass
Yes.
that stuff down, right?
Well, and if groups like the Masons are doing that again, like we've had this discussion, like I think there must be some other value to it other than just the storytelling aspect of it.
Oh,
you know?
100%.
Right?
There's esoteric Masons for a reason. Manly P. Hall with Secret Teachings of the Ages. I have the book here. It's he's Master Mason. He's been through it all. He basically hacked out exactly what all these old philosophies are about, right? But you need to be able to digest and go through all of it. He nails it all out. It's Secret Teachings of the Ages by Manly P. Hall. And I think he talks about the obelisk, he talks about the pyramids, he talks about all kinds of stuff, all the Masonic symbolism, like the checkerboard
Well, and was
floors.
that his real name or is that a pseudonym?
I think it's his real name.
Okay.
Yeah, no, well,
I remember hearing about Manly P. Hall, but I couldn't remember if that was
I just posted
like a
one of
RC
his-
Christian kind of fucking thing where it was.
he is kind of like, well, obviously, you know, the G in Masonic lore is God or the great architect, you know, and you kind of, to be able to get into the Masons, you need to agree that you believe in some greater power. I guess it's kind of like the 12-step program in that way. It doesn't need to all be the same greater power,
Sure.
but you can be a Muslim, you can be, I guess, a Hindu, you can be whatever you want as long as you believe in that greater architect of the universe. And then what they do through a system of allegory and plays, they're supposed to teach you the hidden mysteries that, I guess, which I assume actually is like, all these mystery schools had to become mystery schools because during the Dark Ages, the Catholic Church would murder you if you said anything other than the popular, you know, officially sanctioned religion of the time. So if you had ancient knowledge and you were trying to secure ancient knowledge, maybe from the Templars coming back to Europe from the Jerusalem, and they brought knowledge and they had alternative philosophies, they had alternative knowledge about the histories of mankind or about the truth of religion and what it's based on. If the Catholic Church found out, they would murder them. So they had to explain them and research them and propagate them underground. And so these are the births of a lot of these mystery schools and why they had to go through codes of silence and, you know, on pain of death. If you tell anybody what we're talking about, we're going to kill you. You agree that you will die if you give away our secrets. Now, that was a long time ago. What the Masons now are, my understanding from my friends and from people I know that are pretty involved with it, it's a boys' club. They don't even really, there are a few esoteric Masons still out there that get into like the old, what they're actually supposed to, the symbolism supposed to be. But like, again, like that Georgia Guidestones, that's very, it seems very Masonic to me. I don't know, something about it. It's
Yep.
like, it's,
No, I totally agree.
yeah, the
And
new
it's just-
world, new order of the world, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, I keep saying these things like, yeah, with a smile on my face. I'm like, the world needs a new order. Yeah, we should straighten stuff out. But I think, again, a lot of people think that and they hear that and they're like, well, that means that we're going to have to destroy the one we have. That means we're going to have to wipe out a large portion of the population to make this work. And then in my head, I'm like, well, no, that's one way of doing it, I guess. But we could all just participate positively.
Well,
that's a possibility.
I have an ongoing debate with a friend of mine who actually
Is it
he's-
me?
Well,
Just
no,
kidding.
yeah, that's our weekly
Hey,
debate.
start doing that now. Start talking about each other. But like, yeah, I got this friend of mine. Sometimes he wears a bit of a purple shirt, and fuck, I can't stand him.
Yeah. We have an ongoing debate because he seems to think the salvation of humanity lies in economics, and I tend to believe that the salvation of humanity lies in our psychology, right? And that we need to change our worldview before the economics comes in. And he believes that the economics has to change before. So I guess we shouldn't even debate. We should just
Well,
be
that is interesting because like one kind of fuels the other, you know.
Yes.
But I think you need that shift mentally and psychologically in the people who have the control mechanisms. Then all of a sudden you don't need everybody in every third world country to get to the same level to you spiritually. If everybody who controls the power in those places
It's still corrupt and still self-oriented.
Exactly. If they're not, you can just do what's good for the people
Yeah.
without having to do that. And then when they don't have to struggle for water and food and security and education and health, well, then it's a lot easier to become enlightened. It's a lot easier to see the easier path.
You need some time, some downtime
Without
where
that
you're not
core-
like beat to shit.
Exactly.
You
Where
know?
you can just exist and be like, oh, I don't have to be terrified and worried all the time.
Well, fuck. Even terrified and worried, like that's one angle when your basic survival needs aren't even met. But wait, let's say your basic survival needs are met, and you're just a working class Joe who has to put in 10-hour days, like
Yeah.
6 days a week, 5 days a week, and you're beat to shit. When do you ever have time to sit and contemplate larger issues in life?
Yes.
Like the existential shit. You know, I'm lucky because I tattoo, and I do have downtime to take care of myself and to eat well and to, you know, meditate and do that shit, right? But a lot of people don't have that.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and this system is designed like that because if they did, all of a sudden a lot of them wouldn't participate in the same manner. And then the system's going, well, no, wait a minute. Everybody's leaving?
Yes.
Nobody wants to do this anymore? Ah, shit.
well, I think
You
that's
guys
what's
can-
happened.
Yeah.
Fucking a month and a half, 2 months of COVID.
Yeah.
When people suddenly had downtime
Yeah.
and time to
Yep.
think. And there's literally riots in the street, conspiracy explosions, fucking looting, like 3 months,
Yeah, man.
and shit hit the fan. What happens when people just have that? Like, you start seeing how arbitrary these rules and regulations and things that have been dumped on us are when you step outside that box and they no longer have control of the box. Now, I believe that there is, for lack of a better term, I've been like a quote unquote conspiracy theorist for a long time, but I'm very particular about the shit that I invest in. And it needs to be very well
And clearly,
sourced.
it's not big stone antennas in the desert.
No, not big stone antennas in the desert. Well, I'm an
I love you,
agnostic when
Pat.
it comes to that. I'm an
No,
agnostic.
right.
I'm like, hey,
I
it's a
don't know,
hypothesis.
I don't know. Yeah, right. No, for sure.
And but when it comes to,
Pain in the ass.
I really believe there is a conspiracy, but I don't think it's a bunch of men around a little circle, a circular table with their fingers. Oh yes, yeah, we're
hooded
going to
globe.
do this,
Yeah.
with their little yarmulkes. No, I don't believe that. No,
Wait,
I
what?
don't. I don't believe that. What I
You
really
a dog
think it
whistling up a
is-
storm over here. Yeah, these globalists.
well, and that's just it. See, and this is okay. We're going to touch on this in a minute, but like, the real conspiracies happen in these old boys clubs with big fucking cigars and their scotch, talking about like $100 million deals, treating people like statistics. That's the conspiracy. Is the upper echelon of serious corporate wealth that maneuvers the shape of our global policies, that treats an entire continent like a sweatshop. That is the conspiracy, is the ultra elite wealth.
Yep.
It is not the idea of globalism, of opening up borders and treating everybody like we're all in one big boat, because we are, called the fucking planet. That's not an evil fucking thing. What the evil thing is saying this little section of the boat is the only one important and everybody else out there are fucking servants. And this is coming from people that are inside the luxury
Yeah, right.
area of
as
the
much as
boat.
we feel like servants, we're still doing pretty well. We're not in the. We're fucking just barely below the upper deck.
Fuck yeah,
We're not drowning in
exactly.
the bottom one.
Well, yeah, we're not down there with the roaches and the fucking rats, as opposed to some of these countries where their only purpose is you are a farm country. Some of these countries where your only purpose is you are a mineral country, go fucking mine and send us your diamonds.
Yeah.
That we're the place that gets to show off the diamonds. Oh, look, it's spinning,
Yeah.
Like we are we are District 1. Okay?
Yeah,
we are
right.
District 1. We are not District 12. As much as we like to pretend we're fucking oppressed and watch the movie about it, you don't have to worry about a fucking warlord rolling into your town and chopping off your hands because you don't want to work in his mine, for blood diamonds. So this really blows my mind. There is a conspiracy. It is. There's a legitimate conspiracy of capitalist oligarchs.
Yeah.
That's what it is, that are running the country from behind the scene. The invisible government is profit-driven, run through capitalism. And that is the conspiracy. The proof is there. It's on the table. But all these people like to say, the globalists, they don't even understand what fucking globalism is. Why should we shut down borders? Well, why should we have them? Why should we
right.
have them?
No, so you can imagine dues and then put fucking duty on things and then make sure that, well, you got to pay for it to go this way, and then I'm going to pay for it to go that way, and then everybody gets rich. And no,
Well,
it's not how it
I
works.
guess if
Make
that
more
angle
slaves.
of globalism, well, we're kind of there. We're almost in a capitalist global system where, we're going to take these people's minerals, we're going to send it to this country over here, and we're going to sell it to this country over here. That's capitalist globalism.
That happens to us all the time. That's the reason that they had to put in rules so Potash Corp had offices in Saskatchewan.
because they were yanking our
They were just taking all the resources out, selling them other places in the world, paying people here an okay wage, but taking all the money at like the CEO level, all the real money that's made by the company out of the province into their fucking head offices in Chicago or wherever it was. So we weren't even seeing the trickle down that's supposed to happen from that.
or the fair taxation that's supposed to happen if
So
you're
then they
making
started
the money
making
here.
rules that they had to have head offices here, and they had to, people had to stay here, at least spend their fucking money they're pulling out of the ground here.
So this is a tricky situation, right? So we can't have, in order to protect our natural resources, we have to become more right in protecting our borders, protecting our natural, hey, our stuff, not your stuff, fair trade. Or we open it all up. Hey, we're all in one big thing. We have this, you need it, you've got this, we need it. We all trade on an equal level, like with the United Nations kind of idea, right? So which one are we going to go towards? because it's really difficult to be on the center. You know, it's really difficult. We've been trying a long time, but the capitalist system's failed us. You know, there's a lot of people getting really fucking wealthy, and there's a lot of people having less and less.
Yep.
So that gap. So right now,
Yeah, sorry, if that's how you're gonna gauge it, you know, like the gap from the most rich to the most poor, it's only gotten worse.
and the
It's
numbers
only gotten worse.
There's fewer ultra rich, and there's much more ultra poor. Like,
Yeah.
it's insane, right? The middle class is disappearing. Like, the middle class is turning poor. You're either on the top or you're nothing, right? And I think that needs to be addressed. And I think a lot of people are becoming aware of it, but they're being pointed in the wrong directions. You know, they like to think the liberals are ruining everything.
Oh,
I'm
sure.
like,
Yeah.
dude, no,
Yeah,
it's
they're
not the
being-
liberals.
Yeah, they're always giving a boogeyman to blame, right? Instead of the guy who's telling them someone to blame. Oh, you need to blame that guy. You need to blame this. Well, it's the dude saying it. If somebody's making you fucking blame other people all the time, they're generally the ones who are guilty.
So we had this conversation, buddy at work. He went out to, I think it was Thanksgiving with his girlfriend's farm, or with her farmer dad, and a bunch of his homeboys were over there. I guess they don't call them homeboys on the farms, but whatever. And these guys
You
were
don't know
going
that.
off about the immigrants, and the immigrants are coming for free, and you know they're ruining our country, and blah, blah, blah. And buddy pipes up, and he's like, yeah, how many trucks do you have? Right, you're doing pretty rough for yourself with this combine out here. And these guys just looked at him like he was gonna. He's like, I was kind of concerned I was gonna get out of there safe, and I'm like, well, you know, it's the good old boys club, right? And it's the same thing. I hear all this conspiracy shit coming from the good old boys club that are working out on the rigs or in the mines, when there's a bunch of blue collar dudes, white dudes usually, that in a circle, sitting there with their little circle jerk of conspiracies, you know, and they're going off about how the culture's changing and this is bullshit. Globalists, liberals ruin everything. What about liberalism do you not like? Gay sex is not for me. Like, yeah, well then don't
Hey.
do it. Fuck.
Hey,
Then don't do
that's
it.
that's again, that's always the core of this shit. It's
Yeah.
always some bigotry. It's never
Yes.
policy. It's never. Well, I don't really agree with them spending more on these shoot up zones. I don't think they don't even fucking know. They don't know.
No,
they
they
don't know
don't
the policy.
care.
They just know that other side is sometimes queer and sometimes black.
They're different than me and they're
Yep.
taken from me.
Yep,
You know,
exactly.
and like, yeah, don't worry about it, bro. Don't worry
That's
about
the
it.
basis of it. Because if it comes down to like just what's best for your community, well, obviously it's everything left leaning is better societally.
So these people that have been going off about the COVID conspiracy specifically tend to, in my
is gonna get fun.
experience, match a certain template.
Okay.
They do. They are the good old boy white bros.
Yep.
You know, working class, good old boy white bros. And I'm like, fuck, do you guys just sit around and share these memes and share this shit with each other? So I've got this You Are Not Woke Canadian edition little project I wanted to do. I'm not sure how much time we have, but this has been floating around the internet. I've seen a couple people share it, and it's Canadian specific, and it's 16 points against the COVID conspiracy of globalism. And I thought maybe if you would be down, we can go point by point and maybe talk about a few of these, right? And it's kind of funny because some of them make sense. And that's the thing. The truth is a great way to sell a lie, right?
Yeah,
So
fucking
you put a
right.
little bit of truth in there and you could sell a lot of lie. And so the first one is, I am concerned that people are being labeled conspiracy theorists simply because they question certain government, corporate, industrial motives, or because I question arbitrary laws that revoke my basic human rights.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. You go, well, I can't. Who could disagree with that?
Who could disagree with that?
And then they go, yeah, but the thing that's revoking my rights is they keep making me wear a mask to keep from me spreading the plague. Yeah, say the whole thought, bud. Say the
Yes.
whole thought. What are they stopping you from doing? How are you being infringed? It's the mask to stop the spread of the plague. Okay, you don't have such a strong argument anymore.
I agree.
Wasn't what you know what I mean?
See, and that's exactly the thing.
That's
The
what
first
these
thing
people
makes
don't do.
sense, but
Yeah.
they leave out that second
Yeah.
part, right? Which
Yeah.
which is a crazy logical cheat.
Yeah.
It's going to work great.
Yeah.
Let's see. I do not consent to politicians making money from this virus situation.
Right? Who could disagree with that?
No, I don't disagree with anybody
And
exploiting a
politicians never
bad
made-
situation.
yeah, a pandemic.
I don't know who is.
Exactly.
And
Where are
it-
the politicians making the money off of
Yeah,
this?
it's well, you know, and if the truth comes out that there's some politicians that have an invested interest in like large pharmaceuticals that are profiting off of like,
Yep.
well, hold them accountable in a
Yep.
court of law because all these people tend to be law and order types to boot.
That's
So-
okay. So that's exactly it. In the U.S., that is happening. In the U.S., they've already caught senators who were finding out about COVID, what was going on, and not releasing information for days or weeks that new updates, whatever the fuck it was, because they had stock in different companies that were going to benefit from it. So that is happening. And guess which fucking which party that was?
Oh, really? They were Republicans?
They're all Republicans. They were all Republicans.
See, these
you know
people are scumbag capitalists.
Exactly.
And I think this is what it boils down to.
Yes.
This is capitalism
And,
that your
and so,
issue
and this
is
is this is the Canadian version of this, right? So they're going to try and say like, well, that's happening. It's like, yeah, but it's honestly, it's people that you would align yourself with politically are doing it in the country where you're using the example of, because they don't have that here. Maybe I'm just not aware, I guess, but I haven't heard of a bunch of Canadian politicians being held up to suspicion because they made a pile of money off of masks or some shit like that.
And who would it be? Really?
Well,
of course.
and again, if you really want to go down that hole and check it out,
it's going to be the capitalists.
It's not going to be the answer you want.
No, it's definitely not the NDP.
Well, there you
go. That are out there trying to
exploit. Out there fucking. Ryan Maley's out there hoarding masks. Hey, guy's a fucking doctor. By the way, poor choice, guys. We're all going to get to live through this for a little bit. Well, not all of us. A bunch of us are going to die yet, but there's going to be a few of us who are going to get to live through regretting fucking Scott Moe once again.
I love his COVID plan. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. I don't know. Let's keep the bars and casinos open, though. Yeah. And I mean, I don't disagree. Business has got to stay open, but I mean, let's be consistent. 5 to your household, 500 to the casino.
This one kind of makes me laugh, actually, more than kind of. It's I do not consent to living in a police state.
Right.
I don't think these people understand what a police state looks like.
And these are the same motherfuckers who, when there's a protest going on, are out there bringing the cops coffee. Oh,
Yeah.
We're sure glad you boys are out here with those AR-15s keeping everybody in line. You understand that's what a police state is, right?
Yeah.
Cops with assault rifles keeping people in line. Whether it's a protest you agree with or disagree with, that's a fucking police state.
Well, we had Jose on here. I think it was episode 6, if you want to look back, give or take. Jose's family is from a place where a dictator took over, a real police state where people were being disappeared. We don't live in a police state.
If the U.S. had it for a minute there. He was snagging people off the street and fucking...
In a riot, in the middle of a riot.
Well, in nondescript vans with guys without any fucking badges, man.
Like, black bagging people,
we're getting
basically
as close as we can get here.
Yeah, I don't consent to living in a police state.
Yeah.
But the people that would push a police state through are those with invested interest in maintaining a capitalist oligarchy.
Yes.
They are not the people that are just trying to maintain safety for a community.
The health of the community.
If you want to break the law and don't give a shit about your fellow man and you get arrested for it, that's not a police state. That is you being a criminal.
Right. You can't speed in a school zone.
Yeah.
It's the same type.
Police state!
It's the same kind of street that you can do 50 or 60 on 2 blocks over. But because of the circumstances, you shouldn't do 50 or 60.
I don't want to pay for my groceries.
Right?
Police state!
Let's get out of here.
Police
I don't want to
state!
pay for my weed anymore while we're at it. It's the only thing keeping me from driving down the sidewalk.
Yeah,
So let's address that.
Yeah.
You know, you want to keep people safe. Let's start making weed free. That would keep everybody much safer. At least in my fucking vicinity.
I don't know where this one comes out. This is interesting. I do not consent on spending billions on gun control. It needs to go towards getting the criminals. It is a very socialistic, communistic move to control the people. Hitler's move.
Okay, so that right there, and this is the 16 points Canadian edition.
Canadian points.
So I guarantee the initial author of this is either an American or, better yet, and follow me on this, a Russian bot claiming to be an American that's embedded itself with the fucking NRA in some way, because that is only an issue down there.
This has little Canadian flags next to every
exactly.
point.
No, there's Canadian flags beside it. Exactly. That's what I'm saying, right? It's like it's just repurposed. It's the same Nazi bullshit they keep repurposing all the time. So that right there is an American issue, not a Canadian issue, because there's no new rules coming in that are going to clamp down on people. This is the same shit. We already have background checks. You already have to go through a program.
Yeah.
You already have to have them registered. We
control.
already have all of this gun control that many other places don't.
We have the gun control that they should probably put into the USA.
At least the minimum, that you don't have to even take a test to know how to run one right, and you can just buy one because you're of age in most states. That's nuts. Here, at least you have to fucking pass a goddamn test.
I also want to go back, and this is a socialist communist move. Hitler's move.
Yeah.
You people do not understand that just because National Socialist, Nazi had the word socialist, these people were right-wing.
These are fascists.
Yes, they were fascists. They were not socialists. Socialists stand against fascism, and just because you can't understand...
With hoes and pitchforks.
Yes.
Because they're farming the fields, because everyone's got a job to do.
Because the fascists took away people's guns.
Yeah.
It's a little confused. Socialism is also not communism.
Yeah.
Communism, the state owns everything. Socialism, the state controls a lot of public, infrastructure.
Yeah.
But you can still own private property in not in communism. Communism, everything is state owned. Socialism, is a very wide
and
girth on
is
socialism.
again, most countries in the world that have the higher standard of living are socialist or socialist leaning.
Yeah. Social democracies. I am very much
Exactly.
a social democratic or a democratic socialist.
Yes.
I agree with it. It makes sense that the government should be giving us our basic infrastructure. Tommy Douglas put social health care into Canada from Saskatchewan.
Well, and instead of the lowest bidder doing it, you know what I mean? Let's get
Yes.
someone who's actually qualified and then can be held accountable.
Are
when
you
they're done.
appreciating being able to get a free COVID test because they can't afford them in the States? Yeah.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome
These
to
are
Canada,
the benefits of
motherfucker.
socialism.
Yes.
You benefit every day.
Hitler was not a socialist, you fuckheads.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So I do not consent to the extreme censorship that is taking place on social media platforms towards doctors, scientists, political scientists, and activists, who uphold data about a possible differing outcome than the media would have us believe. This concerns me far more than the virus.
Okay, and like, how loaded is that? How loaded is that? You guys are not letting scientists and doctors have their thing heard, and you go, okay, well, let's hear from these scientists and doctors, and it's that doctor that Trump had on there that said it was a demon in the semen. You know what I mean?
Discredited, largely disproved.
These are things that when there's a global health pandemic going on, you can't have. And not just a differing of opinion, not a differing of like how effective masks are. No, they either are or aren't, and I don't think they are at all. You know, it's like there's no nuance in the argument. It's the opposite argument of what is true by someone who's barely a doctor or barely a fucking science. Like, they got a lab coat on a lot of times, these people. They're discredited. They don't have peer-reviewed fucking papers. But because they put one thing out that one right-wing media outlet like OAN picks up, and then they go, well, we heard this. What do you guys think? And they go, well, that media outlet put it out. Now it's legitimate. And then they vet
The
it.
one
No, we
loud
don't
guy
vet them.
versus the 100 vetted scientists over here.
Exactly.
Well, what about this guy?
Yeah.
He's a fucking whack job.
Yep.
Same goes for the climate denial
Yep.
movement, where like a few well-funded scientists
Yep.
that can pay for all of this research that goes into a biased result can somehow be expected to have the same clout as the world's authorities.
Right.
What about this guy here? Oh, you mean the largely discredited fucking ass jack over there? Yeah, he's
but
a
Alex
nobody.
Jones said, though.
Yeah, Alex Jones and this fucking guy who was given like millions as opposed to the ones that are actually doing real science over here. Yeah. This guy can fucking bribe his way through all of the research that he finds. Oh yeah, we found this. Well, who paid for it? Who paid for it?
Yeah.
And it's almost always the ones with an invested interest in the outcome.
Of course.
Yes, exactly. As opposed to over here, there's no vested interest except the survival of our fucking, our children and our grandchildren.
Right.
Well, but we're not making money over here.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Well, and even with the mask thing, like, nobody's saying you have to buy a mask. There's plenty of this is how you cut one out of some old material you have, and you can. Like, that's how insane it is. They still continue to think like it's like, no, there's a big conspiracy and somebody's making money, and you're like, well, no. To even do the bare minimum to be participating in this doesn't cost you a goddamn thing.
Yes.
You can just do it. Yeah, no, it's wild, man.
So I do not consent to the tracking and tracing of citizens.
Okay, so like, and what is that implying then? Like, they because right here you're going down the rabbit hole where they go, well, this vaccine's gonna have a fucking chip in it, and they're gonna track everybody.
They got the microchip angle, and then there's also contact tracing.
Yeah,
That they don't like the idea that they could be contact traced. Meanwhile, they're posting this shit to social media 4 times a day. Any time that you drive by one of those little things that says, "Hey, do you want to connect to Wi-Fi?" You're sending a ping on your location from your phone. We were talking about the drone strikes. The USA, they target SIM numbers, SIM cards in your phone. All they need is your phone number, and they know where you're at any given time. Don't pretend that you aren't being tracked and traced as an issue of data mining.
Like,
period.
if you think that's a real issue, you're always in jeopardy. They can always find you. The cops want to find you 20 minutes from now. Most people in this world, they're just going to go to your house. Because their information's already out there. Everybody knows where you fucking live if they want to find out.
Yes.
They can find your phone number, and then they can track it. Like, either know where you're going to be or physically find you if they got the technology. It's so irrational.
When people finally get the opportunity to be instantly connected without a device to the Wi-Fi, to their internet, they're going to jump at it.
Yep.
They're not going to be like, no. And as a matter of fact, some of the people that are saying, I do not consent to this, they're going to be some of the first people to jump in so they could fucking be putting their right-wing whack job shit on Facebook from their mind directly. Okay, I do not consent to any party or leader who makes decisions without the democratic process of a vote in Parliament. Not everything is a parliamentary decision.
Right.
Especially in the moment of we need to decide this now to keep ourselves safe.
Well, and
Viruses don't wait for votes.
That's bringing politics again into the decision-making process for something that's it's a virus. This is something that needs to be dealt with. It was already dealt with. It was already decided who was going to make the decision in these situations when you elect the government you have. Because if there was any change that could be made in the Americans, for example, the Democratic portion of Congress maybe would have gotten their own shit together and figured out how to get PPE out to people, or how to get contact tracing going, or how to get their own program going if they could just do it on their own. But if you can't get the government to sign off on it, it doesn't matter. So that being said, you can not want to do it all you fucking want. We already elected the people that we want in charge, and they're doing something about it.
I also think people are forgetting that we're all in the same boat. These people are doing their best to try to figure out a balance between being able to work and keep people safe.
Yep.
The easiest thing, fuck it. Nobody works. Everybody stays home. It doesn't matter.
It's the abstinence of a solution, right?
Yep.
You
Boom.
don't want to get
There you
pregnant,
go.
don't fuck. Keep your dick in your pants. That'll solve it. It's the exact same thing, right?
They're doing their best to try to figure out how we can maintain an economy, pay our rent.
Yep.
You know what would really work? If the banks finally said, oh, guess what? We're going to forgive everybody. We're not going to collect any mortgages. We're not going to expect you to pay anything. Till this is done, the banks step back and say, no, we're going to take a step back. We're not going to collect mortgages from landlords, any businesses, and then nobody has to worry about getting kicked out on the streets because they're in arrears of payment. But guess who won't do it? The fucking banks won't step back. Where's our fucking money?
Well, and what's crazy is that's another one of those situations where it would have immense real-world impact, and almost nothing in the real world would physically change.
Yep.
It would have immense impact in everybody's mental well-being, their sense of security, and
some
all
bankers
the changes
just wouldn't make that interest that much.
Zeros in a computer. You know what I mean?
Fuck them. Okay, so, and once again, you know who's really behind that? It's the capitalists. It's not the fucking liberals. The capitalists are the ones that are behind the fucking banks. It's not a big socialist plot, bankers. Anyways, I do not consent to limiting free speech under the guise of protecting people from the spread of misinformation.
Okay? The spread of a plague. That's what they're trying to protect people from. It's not just your misinformation. It's that your misinformation can get someone else sick,
You can
potentially
get them
dead.
killed. Yeah, exactly. And misinformation, misinformation is an accident.
Yeah.
Intentional disinformation
Yeah.
is a different thing, because then it's malicious.
Hey, well, that even there, like, oh, you want to protect people from misinformation? You mean accidentally fucked up interpreted information? Yes, absolutely. If there was some way to make sure people only heard information that was correct, who wouldn't want that? You know what I mean? And that's almost to say then you just want to be free to say things that you are not true or not provable. You just want to be free to say it.
So what's the doctor's name? Fauci?
Yeah.
In the States? I saw this meme today, speaking of misinformation. This is intentional fucking propaganda. It's like, just because you're a doctor doesn't mean you have people's best interests in mind. And I had a picture of Joseph Mengele from Auschwitz,
Holy
Jack
fuck.
Kevorkian, and fucking Fauci.
Wow.
And I'm like, you people are reaching so fucking hard.
Yeah.
To what? To what end?
And the guy, every fucking interview he ever had, the only thing he ever fluctuated on was like at what time to wear the N95 masks and that cloth masks were acceptable. You know what I mean? It was never, no, masks don't work, or they work 100%, or you won't get the plague if you wear one, or you will. It was never any of that. It was always slight nuance in that, where they change policy and go, well, no, with the new stuff we learned, it actually is airborne for this long, so you want to make sure you're this far apart. And they always said the whole time, like, if you can, wear a fucking mask and stay apart. Then it got to, okay, well, you guys haven't been doing that. Can you at least wear it when you come into these kind of businesses? No, okay, you guys can't do that. Okay, we need you to wear them all the time, everywhere now. Oh, you can't do that? Okay, you're all fucked then, because that's what it takes to fucking slow this down. And if we can't do that, then we're all fucked. We're going to just get
if you don't want to do what it's going to take to slow it down, then you're going to deal with the consequences of the outcome, you know. I do not consent to the closing of small businesses while multi-million-dollar companies remain open.
Yep.
I agree with that to a degree.
Couldn't agree more with that.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
again, this is lobbying by these companies, which are generally owned by right-wing families that lobby right-wing fucking governments to get them to have the control. They would lobby liberals in this country. I don't got it fucking wrong here. Like, I don't think the Justin Trudeau's the be all and end all, but that's why. It's, again, people that would be backing this fucking shooting themselves in the foot. These people that they're gonna, these guys are really the Walton family. They really got our best interest in mind, and they're like, fucking nope. They don't give a fuck that their Walmarts are all becoming plague centers.
Oh, fuck, right. Yeah, close proximity. Lots of people in these places, nuts to butts in
Yep.
Costco. It's insane. And you can go down to Dad's organic market, and they've got the same. Everything's sanitized. You have to hand sanitize when you go in.
Yeah.
But the mom and pops will be shut down before these monster marts. You
Yep.
know.
Well, and what's crazy is too is people like it's like they keep acting like they'll do the right thing, but every chance it's pushed it to the limit. Like, well, where do I have to wear it? Well, you could just wear it all the time when you go to the grocery store. Well, I don't want to yet. Okay, and then it gets to a point. Well, no, we all have to now, right?
Yeah, everybody
we
indoors.
can only allow 60 people inside here. Okay, well, 75 of us are going to wait outside, stand out here all fucking day, all breathing the same air, depending which way the wind
We
blows.
don't have to wear a mask because we're outside.
Right. You didn't tell me that was the rule. You didn't tell me I had to do it just then. Okay, you bunch of fucking 5-year-olds. You're going to find out. You're going to find out.
Yeah.
And it's really unfortunate because it's only going to be painful for them. And even if it's not them physically, because there's the people I can think of that have been denying this shit that are healthy, big, strong dudes. So even if they get it, they'll probably brush it off. But somebody
They
around's
won't.
going to get it. It's going to be an emotional thing for them. It's going to be a real hard time for them, and it won't be for them physically.
Or they say that because they think that, and then when it actually fucking hits, it
Yeah.
won't hit.
Yeah.
Or it won't be so easy to brush off, or like you say, wash away with a hot shower, right? Fucking, I do not consent to being prevented from freely traveling while the politicians who impose these laws break them by going to their cottages or fly across borders. You are not a politician. You are not trying to solve shit. You are Joe Blow sitting at home complaining. These people are
I want to
actually...
visit my family. I want to visit my friends. Absolutely, everybody does. But if it's part of your work, people are figuring out how to do that. We've got friends that had to be they were working in Alaska and wanting to come back and quarantined, and you couldn't fucking do it, and it was months stuck somewhere, and it sucks. And you can do it, but you're going to be fucking quarantined just like everybody else. And you can argue that, well, these politicians aren't. Okay, well, you know what? If during a time when no one else can go to these fucking places and do these things, they're doing it, by all means, that's egregious. You shouldn't be fucking doing that. That seems obvious to me. But when, where, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, you want to go to the college.
And even so, does that justify then that you should? Like that's the fucking
politician
he's punching
traveling-
everybody, so I get to punch people, right?
A politician traveling, attempting to solve the problem that we're working on. It's not like they're doing it for shits and giggles. They're not going to Mexico to sit on the fucking beach. They're going to
like
work.
people up here are.
Yeah, I would still like to. Anyways, that's a whole other story. That's a whole other story. I do not consent to being labeled an anti-vaxxer just because I have concerns about mandatory enforced vaccines and medical procedures rushed without proper protocols, especially high-risk ones with limited testing that are deemed highly profitable to the most questionable of interests. That's a whole bag of a sentence there. Now, I'm not super stoked on mandatory any medical procedure either, you know. I'm definitely questionable. When this first came out, let's say 5 months ago, maybe, give or take. I don't know. How many months have we been in this whole
It was like
thing?
February.
Okay. Yeah.
It was like 10 months ago, 11 months
Jesus.
ago.
Okay, so they told
Hey,
us at the time
fucking
that a
time
proper
warp.
vaccine to be introduced was going to take 18 months for the proper testing. And the fact that they're trying to roll one out now seems a little quick.
Yep.
And I'm not super stoked on it. But that being said, it is what it is. If it's going to keep our community safe, if it's going to keep my next door neighbor who's 75 years old alive, well, fuck, I'll try and do that. I'll do what's necessary
Well,
to do it.
hey, and the way to avoid these is clean
Wearing
your
a
hands,
mask.
wear a mask, don't touch nobody, keep your fucking distance.
Follow the basic
right?
protocols,
Yeah.
and you wouldn't have needed the fucking vaccine.
We
you
need it in a
twat.
hurry. We could definitely let him vet it and then go through all the fucking steps.
Yeah, that's another thing. If we would have sat at home and we didn't go out to the clubs and we didn't bitch and whine about our freedoms, then you wear a mask, you show some common respect for your fellow man. We wouldn't have had to have forced fast-tracked vaccines.
Well, and these same people with the concerns about the vaccines also just get us back to work. Let's go. We want the economy going. Okay, well, here's a vaccine. We're going to do it quicker than ever. Well, I don't know if I trust it. What do you want then?
Yes.
What do you want then? You just
Yeah.
want to just do what
Don't
you want to
wanna
do.
wear a mask. You don't want a vaccine.
I just
You
want to
don't
do what I
wanna
used
stay
to do.
home.
I don't
You
want
don't
no one to
want-
tell me what to do. Okay, well, it's just not going to work. It's not going to work for everybody else because you're going to fucking spread this fucking disease.
I do not consent to the amount of division and hatred that so many people have fallen into between our fellow man simply for upholding opposing beliefs or for speaking openly about what they believe. A gentle reminder, you don't have to be unkind to someone just because you disagree with them or because you lead a different lifestyle than them. United we stand, divided we fall.
Right. And again, it's
But fuck
I'm not
you.
making your gay cake.
Yeah, I'm not
Hey?
making your gay cake. Well,
Go fuck yourselves.
In a vaccine kind of situation, cool. We can have opposing belief systems until your belief system starts infringing on the health of your fellow man.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I
It's-
believe that I should have the right to wave a torch while walking through the mall.
Mm-hmm.
Sooner or later, someone's going to say no and try and censor me from doing that thing.
Yeah.
And should I say my freedoms? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I posted online. Okay, so in World War II, they had blackouts. You know, in Hawaii and England.
Sure.
So the Japanese and the Germans couldn't fly over top and see where the cities were. They couldn't
Yeah.
differentiate between the jungle and between the city.
Yep.
So these are the people that would be running around with flashlights and torches and lighting bonfires saying, my freedoms, I can't see. Why can't I see? You can't tell me what to do. I refuse to live
I
in a
don't like
police
shades.
state. Because they don't give a shit about their fellow man getting bombed. And that's exactly what we're looking at here. It's not that we're against you for having a different belief. I'm against people that are fucking morons
and
and
they don't-
endangering their fellow
And they
man.
don't care about themselves.
Yeah, I
like
guess.
you don't care about yourself. Then if you're just like, I'm just fine with getting the plague.
Yeah.
I'm just fine with it.
Well, then go off to Plague City. You know what I mean? That's what I would like. You know.
It's going to be us. Our numbers keep fucking going up.
Well, everywhere is
We're
Plague
going to be
City,
Plague
right?
City.
Okay, so I do not consent to the idea that pharmaceutical companies are the only way to prevent or heal illness. An outright dismissal of the side of the conversation it is highly questionable from my perspective. Yes, I agree with that. I don't believe that pharmaceutical companies are the only way to prevent or heal illness, and I don't think that side of the conversation is questionable. In certain cases, you can't wish away the plague.
Yeah, I don't know how many essential oils get rid of COVID.
Yeah. You know, there's certain things that we can only depend on pharmaceutical companies to heal.
Yep.
Now, when it comes to like, I'd say depression, psychological stuff, I'm sure, yeah, there's things that we can work with. There's non-pharmaceutical methods that to heal some of that stuff.
Or a balance of the two, whatever
Yep.
works for you, right?
Now, what are you going to suggest other than pharmaceutical solutions to solve this situation?
Are you going to need to stay 6 feet apart to wash
Wear a
your
mask?
hands and wear a mask?
Yeah, could you do that maybe?
Right? You don't want to have to rely on that
Yeah,
shit.
yeah.
Well, then you have to
That
you have
was a
to do
non-pharmaceutical
fucking
solution.
Something. You have to do something. Your feet and pants are on fire. Piss your pants if you have to put it out, I guess. But you got to do something.
So yeah, that was kind of an interesting one. And then I do not consent to the media only covering the death count when survival rate is immensely higher. Fear
Of course it is.
Fear
What?
cripples immunity. And why aren't we talking about our success?
Hey, why aren't we talking about the more successful car rides to the grocery store, not just the ones where all the school kids got killed? Hey, how come nobody's talking about that?
What about the happy people that survived the fucking
That is
plague?
just pure. That's Pollyanna fucking head in the sand bullshit. Like, well, I don't want to have to hear the bad news. How come they
That's
don't ever tell me
literally-
the good news? Well, and you want to hear more of the good news about the survivors with the long haul fucking disease where their hair's falling out and they can't remember their kids?
That's
Let's talk more
literally
about the good news.
why Trump justified denying it for so long.
Fucking
Because
right.
he said fear cripples immunity, and why aren't we talking about our successes? I don't want to panic people. We're only going to talk
Okay?
about the positives.
And
the
you're
power of positive thinking
and
is
the
going to
successes are that the plague didn't kill them. That's the success. It's not that they were immune. It's not that they discovered some new way to fucking battle it. It's that all these people got it, and a bunch of them didn't die. They didn't die.
They didn't
that's
die.
the success of it.
Well, and I love his success
But not
story.
because of anything you did, though.
His success
There's nothing
story.
that saved lives.
He got rushed away to a private facility. You know, he didn't have to pay for
cocktail of drugs no one else has access to.
You know, somebody mentioned, like all these Republicans going and getting all this stem cell stuff
Yep.
that they disagree with
Yep.
politically.
They
You're not allowed
voted-
to.
Exactly. They would have voted against research and this kind of shit for fucking years, and then as soon
They
as they
still
needed
do.
it, yeah, oh yeah,
Until
fucking
they
rights
need
will.
it,
Yep.
and then they're like,
because
"Oh,
they still
shit."
got money. It doesn't matter to them. They can still do whatever they want.
So those are some of the what is it?
Wow.
The 16 points are about the removal of consent against the COVID conspiracy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and I figured it would kill some time today.
So again, where's the conspiracy and all that too? Like they're even like, well, they just keep talking about the death numbers. Okay, so you're admitting that people are dying from this, right? So what is the conspiracy of it? There's people dying. There's people getting it. There's people recovering from it. Where's the conspiracy aspect in this?
Do you want me to put it on the table? What
Oh,
I've
God.
heard?
Yes, please.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that this thing was engineered by an elite group of people and put out in order to usher in what is called the Great Reset, which is a legitimate economic plan put out by the World Economic Forum for a reset of a failing capitalist society, right? And they believe that they did it intentionally. This World Economic Forum is just a front for a cabal of elites that want to push through essentially what they believe is communism, because they don't understand communism. They don't know the difference between Nazism and communism, so I don't really buy whatever the fuck they're talking about.
So sorry, with this Great Reset, when they first started talking about it, now was this one of these like gaming scenarios? Like, if these things happen, these are the things we can do to reset it, or if this was failing, these are the things you should do to reset it? Or was it, hey, we had a symposium, we figured out what we want to do, now we're going to start the Great Reset?
Okay, so
Because I think like guys like Alex Jones use the first one, where somebody goes, okay, game theory, this is what could happen if a pandemic hits, and then they'll lay out what could happen when a pandemic hits, and then when that does happen, they'll go, well, see, look, they planned this, they knew this was going to happen.
This was a book, I think, written. It was an economic strategy written by this guy. I forget his name, but I'm going to read you a little bit from the World Economic Forum website. It says, the COVID-19 crisis and the political, economic, and social disruptions it has caused is fundamentally changing the traditional context for decision making. The inconsistencies, inadequacies, and contradictions of multiple systems, from health to financial to energy and education, are more exposed than ever amidst a global context of concern for lives, livelihoods, and the planet. Leaders find themselves at a historic crossroads, managing short-term pressure against medium and long-term uncertainties. As we enter this unique window of opportunity to shape the recovery, this initiative will offer insights to help inform all of those determining the future state of global relations, the direction of national economies, priorities of societies, and the nature of business models and management of a global commons. Drawing from the vision and vast expertise of leaders engaged in across the forum's communities, the Great Reset Initiative has a set of dimensions to build a new social contract that honors the dignity of every human being. So basically, what they're saying it's a new economic plan, which essentially there's I forget what they said. There's I'm gonna find it real quick here. Okay, Klaus Schwab was the guy that came up with the Great Reset launch, and he wrote a book about it. Basically, there were a few points that they wanted: a shareholder economy where everybody was involved with ownership of business, and it wasn't just a privileged few. They wanted an emphasis on ecological sustainability, environmental sustainability. It was a shift towards shareholder capitalism. It seems like a legitimate plan. I don't have the full thing here. I can't pull it all up, but it's a legitimate
Like it's a real platform.
It's a real platform, World Economic Forum.
things.
It's well
Yep.
thought out.
Yep.
And what the thing is, it got put out, or the reasons for it became no more blatant than what has happened with the virus.
Reasons you would need this.
Yes,
exactly.
Guess
we have
what?
this huge
People are
problem.
losing their businesses.
Yes, okay,
people
yeah.
are unemployed.
Yep.
People are starving. People can't afford Medicare.
Yep.
Like, there's a reason that, like, they're saying that free market, unrestrained capitalism has failed. It's leaving a lot of people in by the wayside, and we're going to need to reevaluate how we look at things.
Yep.
I don't have the full plan in front of me, but these right-wing nut jobs believe that COVID was engineered in order to push this system through, which they think is communism, because they don't quite get communism.
Yeah.
And so it's the communist elites that are trying to eliminate freedom by pushing through a fake virus.
And sorry, how long ago was that guy's book written? Did you mention?
Oh shit! Yeah, I don't remember.
Anyways, well, no, that's just interesting because again, I feel like that's what Alex Jones and these kind of guys do.
Well, that's
right?
who they're basing this shit off of.
They
right?
take the little bit of the truth and they go, well, say, look, they wrote this the one time and they said this is something that would work. Well, this is how they would implement it. So they must be doing that. It's like if you can imagine it, then it's like, well, then you're doing it, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. What is it? Causality and causation, right? Just because two things, what is it? Causality does not imply causation. So just because two things happen in close proximity doesn't mean that one caused the other. And I think these people are confused about this. So this is The Great Reset, Resetting the World by Klaus Schwab. He's the founder and executive chairman of the World Economic Forum, and he co-authored this book setting out his vision of the Great Reset, and a new report shows why we should work with rather than against nature, deliver clean growth, and provide hundreds of millions of jobs. So why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we? Because of freedom? Because people have mistaken capitalist selfishness for freedom.
Well, that's the slave owners all arguing that that's what would happen. You guys got to maintain your freedom down there. Make sure they don't take your freedoms away. Well, I keep you a wage slave during the week.
Yes, exactly.
That's who has a problem. Because as soon as you were saying that, like companies being owned by the people working there. Well, you got a fucking warehouse full of 100 people working. Who has an issue with
and
that?
they're all a stakeholder.
The one guy that was the owner. You know what I mean? So 99 of us are much better off now, and one of you is going to do a little bit worse. And not even that much worse. You're probably still going to have a similar standard of living.
I think this is turning into a communist podcast.
Well,
reclaiming the means of production.
But what's funny though is by just having conversations and being, what would be the right thing to do in this situation? What would be the balanced and fair thing to do? A lot of times you do end up leaning towards these things where it's like, well, no, that's fucking communism. And you're like, well, yeah, because it's kind of the more balanced thing to do if you don't have power that you're not willing to lose control of.
I think full communism is an imbalance, but
Sure.
I think a move towards a democratic socialism, and I think that's what this is talking about.
Yeah.
We're not stealing your property, and that's another one of these conspiracy fears is that they're going to take away all of our private. No, they're not. Nobody gives a shit about your fucking Buick.
And by the way, that all happened throughout the last several generations in Saskatchewan, where the small farms disappeared and conglomerates took over and corporations moved in.
Oh, and they're selling off all of our crown corporations.
What land's left for them to take? They're going to take it from another multinational corporation that owns it?
Yeah. Actually, just recently they were selling off a bunch of the crown lands. Mo is selling off a bunch of the crown lands, and the indigenous people are losing their fucking shit. They're like, us, hello, give it to us. It's our land. You're giving away our land to private ownership.
Well, it's our land right fucking now. You go back far enough, it's theirs. But even under the terms now, that's
crown
ours.
Land is Canadian land, and who's getting the money and where's it going? That's how he's going to solve the deficit, right?
Yeah, through more mismanagement,
selling off all the crown stuff to private.
Yeah. Fuck.
We solved it. We solved it by privatizing everything.
Yeah, we pissed our bed. Now we got to sleep in it.
All right. So do we have anything coming up? My one buddy that I was talking about that I debate the economy versus psychology, he's runs a couple businesses, actually internationally. He's got a cleanup ecological business and another one that he's been working on. So he wants to be a guest, and he's a very interesting cat, to have somebody on.
Businessman.
Yeah, he's
a bit of a businessman. Huh?
Well, he blows me away. He's kind of scary. You can do that.
What's interesting is I actually
highfalutin white collar scum.
Yeah, exactly. You bougie bitch. And actually, I was thinking earlier. There's a buddy of mine who plays music, and he just started doing a project where he's doing covers of all these old fucking bluesy rock kind of fucking songs he's doing on his own little twist acoustically, and he said part of it was the intention he wanted to do a podcast on covers and on like, is this a better version of that one, and just kind of talking music and shit. And I was like, well, fuck, maybe that's a dude I should get down here and he can play some fucking a tune or two. So yeah, I should talk to him and see.
Dooner too.
Yeah, exactly.
Fucking
is my Canadian coming out? Sorry.
Like fucking Dooner.
Yeah. You fucking put a plaid shirt on long enough, you'll start talking like a fucking
get some stubbies.
Maple syrup swilling lumberjack looking fucking pancake fucking motherfucker. Yeah.
Pancake fucking motherfucker.
Yeah, I made eye contact with the rest when I said that. been a waffle man myself. Well, should we call it a day?
Yes, we should.
Right on. Good chat, dude.
Have a good.
I hope everybody gets to the first part of me just rambling, because the last bit I really fucking enjoyed. I can't wait to listen to it again myself, actually.
Yeah. Next time we'll just put a calming audio tone. Whoa.
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna start my project. Yeah. I'm gonna fucking show you this how it works. Start convincing people to put rocks up in their yard.
Look like Charlie Day with all the red lines all over. Well, fuck, that's what I feel like.
Can we talk about the mail? Pepe Silva. Anyways, yeah.
Have a good one.
Yeah, bye. Take it easy.